Welcome, welcome, welcome to another HVAC Insider Series brought to you by Breezy. I'm your host, as always, CJ Todd, and it is such a pleasure to be here with you all, my friends. So today we are tackling one of the biggest profit levers in the trade, and that's closing more of the calls that you're already running. Now, most companies maybe think their pricing is the problem or their customers are the problem, but the truth is top performers in the industry are consistently hitting close rates that kind of seem impossible, and they're doing so with a system. Now, our guest today, Matt Koop from The New Flat Rate, has helped thousands of techs and managers and owners turn average performance into predictable, high conversion results. And he's here to walk us through the path to becoming truly unstoppable in the field. So before we get into that content today, I'd love to kind of introduce Breezy and connect the topic that we're going to learn today with something that we care very deeply about here at Breezy. So a great sales system like the one that Matt's going to teach us today, it's turbocharged when we can add that to a modern interface that actually helps you sell. Breezy was built exactly for that reason. It gives techs a clean, intuitive tool that they need to present options inside the home with confidence. So when the process is clear and the experience is smooth, the customer feels taken care of, and that tech feels very confident delivering those solutions that Matt's going to teach us today. And our users are showing that it actually works at scale. So Breezy contractors saw a 19% median year-over-year growth, which is nearly double the industry average of 8 to 10. So here's a quick overview of the HVAC Insider Series for anyone who might be joining us for the first time today. We bring you industry-leading experts like Matt Koop today that have practical strategies to grow profitable home services businesses and stuff that you can implement immediately to really see results. We do that 3 times a month. It's absolutely free. You don't have to be a Breezy customer to show up and get all that benefit. So please make sure to join us every week. There's nothing to lose and everything to gain. And if you want to catch up on all the episodes, we have, I think, 25 in the vault. We have that full library of recordings on our YouTube channel. Be sure to visit, subscribe to our channel, and join us every week because I don't want you to miss out on any of that. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce my friend, Matt Koop. So Matt is the man, the myth, the legend, the executive VP of The New Flat Rate, and honestly, one of the most respected trainer in our field, right? He started very young. Matt, you can elaborate. I think 15 or 16 inside the HVAC, plumbing, electrical kind of trades. He grew to running a truck at a very young age, producing 3 or 4 times the industry average, right? He grew to be an expert in communications, pricing psychology, how to incorporate a high conversion process. And he's transitioned all of that expertise that he's grown into coaching hundreds of teams across the industry to record-breaking close rates. So as a thank you for joining us, Matt is offering a self-guided worksheet called The Path to Unstoppable, which helps you identify gaps, define habits you need to change, and really map out those daily rhythms that are going to help you create consistent closers. So you can scan that QR code now. Just the resource alone is worth being here today. With all that said, we're very lucky to have Matt Koop joining us today. Matt, welcome to the show, my friend.
CJ, thanks for having me. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you everybody for taking time to really come out and hang out with us today. And CJ, just to start off, because as you were talking, it made me think about, from where I started to why we're even here, and something that's not in my presentation today is taking time. And what I had to do with that is over the years, I've ended up with this infatuation with one specific question. And the question is just why? Is just why. So like when I look at businesses, why do they do things the way they do? But as a service technician, I was looking at customers and saying, why would a customer ask me to leave their house? when they had asked me to come. And you know what? We're here today to talk about the path to 100% closing. And you're like, oh, Matt, you've actually gotten kicked out of a house. No, I've gotten drug out of houses, CJ. I'm talking about people literally has grabbed me by my shirt and dragged me to the front door and said, get the hell out of the house. And the funny thing though is that's why we're here, is because as you were talking, you were saying talking about time and everything that Breezy can do for you. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. It's Breezy because it's a breeze, right? And but I was thinking, you know what? As a service tech, why would somebody and service tech salespeople, every position in the industry, why would somebody take time out of their day to schedule to have a home service company in their home to do anything, even if it's for an estimate? But why would they take the time out of their day and not want to say yes? And that's really what I want us to talk about today is the why would they even consider that? Because one thing that I've learned over the years, I've had ups and downs in my financial careers just like anybody else. But I'll tell you, CJ, I've hit times where I've made plenty of money and it was all easy. But the thing is I've learned that I can always make more money. So spending money is easy for me. It's easy to say yes, I'll buy that. But see, what I can't duplicate is time. And if I give you my time, like here today, you and I are giving our time to try to help these people, why would we give our time like that to a homeowner that asked you to come out, said they had a problem, and think that they didn't want to say yes because it's a total waste of time for them if they don't. And so it led me down this path that we're going to go on today, which is that I built this belief. And the belief is that I believe that 100% of your customers that called you to book any appointment, they did so with the intention to buy. And so today I want to share with you some psychology, some tips and tricks, and some things that myself learned and that my company, the New Flat Rate, learned, and that we all learned together along the way on ways to make sure that that happens way more than not. And that's really the trick, so to say. And yes, for your info, I started very very young, and so I think the as my presentation comes up, you'll see that I started really when I was about 12. During the summers, I worked for a family business, and so I was about 12 years old, and my dad woke me up one morning, said, "You got to go to work." And so I started in the electrical industry. I was really, really small, still not a giant, but I was really small, and so I got to be the one that crawled through the attics and under the houses and pulled the wire and all the really nasty fun stuff. That was me. But I was an electrical apprentice for several years. Went into the plumbing trades because we had a multi trade company, and then ultimately I was 16 when I actually went to trade school. And so I went to trade school for heating and air conditioning and ultimately landed in building science. But throughout the course of the years, went from just being a helper to a service tech to a service manager and a salesman to helping the company exit at the end of 2012, and then became a process specialist and helped to design and build the company that today is known as the New Flat Rate. But throughout that, I've seen over the years that when I was a service technician, the industry average repair ticket on like the HVAC side was about $230, and hasn't grown that much today. By the way, today the average is only about $400, and so out of the last 15 years, that's a big difference. But when I exited the truck full time, my average ticket was just shy of $1,800, and my truck did over 600,000 a year in repairs and replacements, not include well in repairs, not including replacements, and so the replacements were on top of that, and that was about 600,000 what I actually turned wrenches on as well, which at the time was over 3 times industry average. Today, when I do ride-alongs, my average ticket is over 2,700 because of pairing the other things that we've learned over the years. And we consistently see a closing rate when myself and our other trainers are in the field of over 95% following the processes that I want to share today. So thanks
That's
for having
awesome,
me.
Matt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just want to say maybe there's some more pliable labor laws back in the day, starting at 12.
Yeah, it was called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, right?
There you go.
And so
Yeah.
so it was, hey, you want to eat tonight? Then go to work. That's what we did.
Yeah,
So
and I just want to reiterate, how incredible you are at training because one of our Breezy customers, after the last show with Danielle from the New Flat Rate, hired you guys. I think paid upward of 30 grand to do a ride along, and they had nothing but just glowing reviews, just improved customer experience, improved average ticket like by a lot. So really great investment, really great service that you're offering, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the content.
well, are we ready?
We're ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right. So diving in, this show today is not about me. It is about you, everybody watching, everybody that'll be watching the recording. Because I want you to start by asking yourself a question. And the question is, why do we do what we do in the way that we do it? This is a personal question. I'm not talking about your company right now. I'm not talking about anything other than your actions in life. Where do those come from? And the more you think about it, you can answer it a lot of different ways. But it tends to always come down to one thing. It comes down to, well, that's the way I believe, or that's the way I was taught. And the funny thing is I'm not going to get into this today a lot, but belief structures of, well, I believe this to be true. I've found over the years that most of those core beliefs that we have, they come from a time where you decided that to be right or wrong, usually between the ages of 2 and 6 years old. And so a time in your life where, CJ, you probably were even getting partial information. Like your parents were having a conversation and it was censored because you were in the room. So you got these little pieces of information, but yet you might have built a lifelong belief because of that. And one of the most common lifelong beliefs that so many trade professionals built early on is a belief about money. And it's a belief that asking for money is bad or wrong, or asking somebody how much money they have available is bad, wrong, or rude. And so when we're out there working, and these teams are working with their hands, their blood, sweat, and tears, and they're working their asses off, and they're trying to get somewhere, but yet they're working and working like if they're trying to climb and hit this new goal, but yet at the end of the day, it's like they never do any more than they ever did. You ever felt like that in life?
I sure have. That's definite.
You know, there's a book that I'll put on the screen in a second, but the book is called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And the reason I say, why do we do things the way that we do, is because if you really look back at it, year after year after year, so many of us, we think, well, I'll just do more of what I did last year and I'll do better. I'll bring in more money by working more hours. What the hell kind of life is that? Like, let's just get real, because I've been the service technician. My longest single day ever as a service technician was 36 hours nonstop. It's from 8 o'clock in the morning. Talk about labor laws, right? 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock the following evening. And I went home and died for about 3 days before I realized I never, ever, ever wanted to do that again. And you might say, well, gosh, did you make a lot of money? Not worth it. It wasn't worth the wear and tear on my mental state, on my body, the danger. I don't know how I survived that night and didn't die, to tell you the truth. And so There's a book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. Definitely worth the read if you've never read it. But it's really here to just start a question. And the question is, do you want more? More what? More money? Do you want more time with your family or vacation time or to actually get off early as a trade professional? Gosh, when I was a service tech before I started the process we're going to go over today, I would work from sun up to after sundown. I didn't see my children. I didn't get to go on vacation in the summertime because I was in air conditioning. I thought you never could. And then all of a sudden, I said, you know what, enough is enough. And so I decided that I wanted more and that whatever my belief system that was getting in the way had to go. Now, some of you, though, right there when I brought in that money talk, you've got that belief system that started coming up with excuses. And one of the most common excuses that I see in the home service space is this one right here when you say, well, people say that we're expensive already. You know what? We're the most expensive company in town. You know what's funny, CJ? I literally work with thousands of home service companies. And did you know every single one of them I think I've ever worked for? Maybe one of them didn't, but 99% of them all think they're the very most expensive in their market. Right. And today I actually work with multiple companies in the same markets, and I know who the most expensive is, but yet they all think it's them. Right. And so, you might say, well, why do customers tell you that, you know what, you're too much money? I'm going to have to get other quotes. This is too expensive. I mean, do you think any of our audience has ever heard that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe if you're tuning in and you're still listening, go ahead and give me a thumbs up or something in that chat board there. Let us know that that's you. Because here's what I've learned over the last, 20 plus years that I've been doing what I'm doing now. I've learned that sometimes customers lie. You know what? They just absolutely lie. And you might say, well, what does that mean, Matt? You know what? I think they do lie, but what do you mean? Why would they lie? They lie because of this. I'm good friends with some of the higher ups in some of the manufacturing world. So some of the big trade manufacturers in the home service trades, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, and these are multi-billion-dollar companies. And you know what? Out of billion-dollar companies, do you think that they have a vested interest in finding out what the customer actually wants and doesn't want? Of course they do. So they spend hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions to answer that question of why would a customer say no? And the funny thing is they ask these customers these questions from third party polls. So not your home service company. It's coming from a non-biased third party source that the consumer doesn't know. And so they ask the question, like one of the ways they ask it is if you had a home service company that you were going to stop using and go find a different company, what would be some reasons why you would leave the first company and think that you need to go find another one? Well, in the top 10 reasons why literally tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of consumers have answered why they will leave a home service company, did you know that price hardly ever hits the top 10? Hardly ever. But if we turn the poll the other way, and I ask home service contractors and managers and technicians, um, what do you think the top 10 reasons is that a customer would choose a different company over you? Price is always in their top three almost. And you might say, well, why? Because that's one of the number one objections that customers give technicians. But it's not true. You see, the true reason, if we look at the customer's number one reason not to choose your company today, it's because they did not feel listened to. They didn't feel listened to or heard. They didn't feel important. They didn't feel like you were actually going to solve the thing that that they called you for. And so, but you got to think about it. If they don't feel like you're going to solve it, then their trust level is low. And if you have somebody standing in your living room that you don't know and you don't know how they're going to respond, tell me what's easier? Is it easier to just say, you know what, this is a lot of money, I'm going to get other quotes? Or is it easier to look them dead in the eye and say, I don't trust you? Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely hard to tell someone that you don't trust them to their face.
It is very hard. So that starts our path. And here's the path today. The path is the understanding that there is no such thing as a price objection. When the customer gives you a price objection, it's a lie. The only thing that's existing right then is a lack of value. It's a lack of value objection. They're looking at you, they're looking at your offer, and they're saying, I don't see the value that makes what you're saying worth it. Now, another way to prove this to yourself, because this is a belief that we have to change if we're going to actually ever do any better. I can give you the greatest tools in the world, and it's not going to do crap for you if you can't overcome this belief. And so you have to answer this question. Have you ever bought something that was really expensive, but that you still thought was worth the money? I think everybody has, right? We've always all bought something. You bought a house, you bought a car, you've went on vacation, you've bought I've got friends that buy lots of guns and things like that. You know, they put a lot of money in this stuff and they're like, wow, you know, that's awesome, totally worth it. But why? You see, people don't mind spending money. It's you thought it was worth it because value is an experience, not a price. If you're filling out the handout that was on the handout, is value is an experience, not a price. And that's the first thing that we got to do to shift our mindset to see why did the new flat rate and Matt build this new process that delivers these amazing results where customers beg us to spend more money. They beg us to spend more money. Why? Because they want a better value. They want a better experience. So, another question. What is the experience that we're giving our customers today? And so, that's my son right there. He's 12 now, but he was younger there. I took him to work one day. Shh, don't tell there's those labor companies, right? That's what we do. But what is the experience that we're delivering? Are we delivering great experience? And you'll see that even on some of these pictures, you know what, some of the experience that I'm sharing right here, you've got that those inside the condenser units that we cleaned out. um so many techs will spend so much time telling customers that it doesn't matter that that stuff's in there. It doesn't really hurt anything. We cleaned the coils. That's what matters. But yet, so much of experience is visual. It's not even funny. Like just like we're talking about sales and things like that. But step number one, you want to make more money, increase your referrals. You increase referrals by making things look wow. When you go in and you vacuum out the bottom of a condenser and you shine it up and you show customers before and after pictures, they say wow because they don't understand anything else that you did, but they understand a drastic visual difference.
And Matt, I just want to, if you mind switching back
Yeah, man.
to your last slide. I mean, that outdoor condenser, that's shiny. The space is clear of debris, and
Mm-hmm.
that's probably visible from across the street from the neighbor too. So you make it
Oh,
look
for
good for
sure.
the customer, and you make it look, you know, strengthen their curb appeal. That's a
Well,
plus experience.
and the condenser there, you know, that has the block and stuff, that was our standard practice is putting the block, filling it in with crushed marble, you know, making it good. That stuff's not even expensive. Like it's really not. Those blocks, you know, $2 a piece or something like that. But when we're closing deals, you know, that right there was probably, and that was a while ago. That was 7 or 8 years ago. But I remember that job. That was like $18,000. And so, you know, 18 grand for a unit, I can spend $300 to make it just look amazing. You know, just look amazing. And it doesn't even have to be a super high-end piece of equipment to do that. And you can still get the money that your company needs to be able to pay you, to pay everybody. It's really, really great. One thing on the title of this, it had mentioned, some testimonies that I would share. Had the coolest testimony the other day that came back, and this would be a good place for it. Um, it was November 1st, and I was talking to this service manager, I guess he was the general manager of this company that I had been coaching and training with, and they use the new flat rate app and pricing system. And he told me that they had just really got into it at the beginning of the year that I started coaching with him. So we're talking 10 months. And he said, Matt, he says, in the last 10 months, I just want to let you know that even though we're literally bringing in 2 and 3 times more revenue than we were when we started with you, he said, we have not seen an increase in customer complaints about price at all. He says, if anything, it's been a decrease. He says, we haven't lost any customers because of price, more so than we would have before. And he said, our closing rates are higher. They're buying higher options. And he said, as of today, every single employee in the company, every office person, every warehouse person, every helper, every service technician had already made as much money on their paycheck as they had the entire year of 2024. And so 10 months in, they had made their previous year's 12 months worth of revenue personally. That's a big deal, which means all of November, all of December is a pay raise for all of these families that are affected by what we do here. And that's really cool. But that's where it starts. You see, it starts with, if we're gonna make more money, you can't be Chuck in the truck. And Chuck, if you're on the call, I apologize, man. It's an expression. So
And man,
if
I
you
just investing in customer experience is just such a revolving door too. Like you said, it just raises all ships.
Oh, it does. It's amazing. So here's the thing, kind of to pull this together. I started a journey at the end of 2007. Um, I was closing deals then. Just for the record, our company was a sales driven company. We sold boxes, we moved them, we did sales training every week, role played every morning. Like we were that company that you see that maybe some of you talk bad about. But we did the practice because that's how the industry told us that we made the money to support our families. But at the end of 2007, it was November 2007. I remember it like yesterday, was when I had the worst service call of my life. And I literally went in with the intention to help this person. See, I didn't get into the industry to be a high pressure closer. The industry told me I had to. But I went into this job with the intention to help this customer. And when he saw the quote to make the repairs and stuff that we wanted to do, he flipped out, grabbed me by my shirt, and literally pulled me out of his house. And I literally, CJ, I thought he was going to punch me in the face. Like it was the most disruptive moment of my career. I was ready to quit. I'm like, I did not come into this industry to get beat up by a customer. I just wanted to help the person, but it was an expensive job. And so after my mentors had talked me off the ledge of just closing the doors and walking away, I set out to solve the problem. And I realized what happened. What happened was we had a customer that wanted to buy, but when I went in there, he felt sold. And customers hate to be sold, but yet they love to buy. And so that day, we made a change in our home service company, which brings us to why we're here today. And the change is that day we stopped studying sales. I said, you know what? Customers hate it when you try to sell them something, but yet we're spending all this money on sales training every day. We're done. And we shifted the focus and we started studying how people buy. Now, those are like three quarters opposites. The way that the psychology that somebody buys is not the same as the psychology of selling them something. At least in the world of training, it's not. And so we said, well, if we're going to do this, we got to have some role models. We got to find somebody that has mastered this process, right? Because I believe you got to have it's so much faster if you just take somebody that's already done it. Like you're going to see as we go through this, one thing that we've done is in the last 2 years alone, we've spent over 15,000 man hours just on the new flat rates content and data that saves your team thousands of hours and frustration. And that's worth something, right? So I wanted to find the person that had done that already. And we went through the home service industry, heating, air, electric, and plumbing, and we couldn't find a company that had mastered the buying process at that time. And so we shifted our focus to the world of retail. And we looked at these two companies because they were the big ones that everybody knows, right? Walmart and Home Depot. And Walmart pretty consistently does about $535 billion a year in revenue. Now, just to help everybody know how much money that is, because it's absolutely insane, that is if you made $1 per second, every single second, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, a dollar, it would take you 16,964 years to make how much money they make in 1 year. That's crazy, isn't it? They're the largest brick and mortar retail establishment in the world. But we did not pick them because they're big and fancy. We picked them for two reasons. Number one was if you walk into Walmart today, how many high pressure salespeople are going to see on their showroom floor? Zero. That's right. And ask yourself the question, if they positioned a salesperson in every single aisle to quote unquote help you shop, would you spend more time or less time in the store?
I would spend less time in the store.
I
I
think
don't like
everybody
talking
would,
to
wouldn't
people.
they? All right. You'd spend less time in the store. If I said, would you buy more or less, you would buy less too, right? But with no high pressure salespeople today, over 70% of customers that walk into those stores buy 40% more than they went in there for every single time. All right. That's a big deal, which means Walmart and Home Depot proved something. They proved that it doesn't take sales to close sales. It takes letting somebody buy. So we went into these stores with video cameras and recorders. We interviewed their staff. We interviewed the customers. We just kind of creeped down some aisles and watched people buy. It was a little bit weird, but we had to solve this problem. Why do people buy more? And we stumbled across this. There's a book by Michael Lozier called The Law of Contrast. I mean, the Law of Connections by Michael Lozier. And in it, he refers to this thing called the law of contrast, which is how the retail world works. You see, if you go into Walmart today to get anything, is there only one item on the shelf or a bunch? There's a bunch. And so, but think about this for a second. Have you ever went to one of your customers' homes and said, "Hey, Mr. Customer, we can fix it. It's $450 for an example," and they flipped out over the $450? Of course you have. But why? It's because you were missing contrast. You see, when we were watching these people buy, we learned that when there were multiple items on a shelf at different price points, every single customer looked at the same two items first. They looked at the cheapest and the most expensive. But you see, if your conversation with your customer was framed that way, but not starting with the cheapest, because if I start cheap and try to move somebody up, that's called upselling. See, you've heard that term before. The industry is always trying to teach you to upsell. You don't want to upsell. That's the hardest freaking game in the world. You have to be an amazing, amazing salespeople. And don't get me wrong, some of you are on here are amazing, and I'm not downing that skill. I'm giving you a way to make it easier on you. All right. You got to be amazing to get a customer to move up 2 or 3 levels. All right. Because of the resistance, it's an uphill battle. But instead, we found that if you start with the top, and instead of saying it's $450, we go in and we say, "Hey, CJ, my best option is $1,800 today. It's 1,800. That takes care of all my concerns. It gets you up and going. But we have these other options. What should we do?" Instantly, I'm talking fraction of a second, when the customer looks at this, they see that, okay, I can spend a lot of money, I can spend a little money, but what does the $450 look like now? You see, it instantly provides relief. Right? At least I can spend $450. And this could be the same customer that just cussed you out a minute ago, right? When you would have went in and been like, "It's $450. Are you freaking crazy?" But now when you say, hey, it's 1,800, but we have these other options, what should we do? They're like, oh, okay. But you see, at the same time, this contrast kicks in, and this $450 next to that 1,800 now looks a little bit different too, doesn't it? What does it look like also? A little risky. It looks like, hey, I could spend 450, but if I do, it might break again. If it breaks again, I have to do all of this again. Now, this contrast, we call it the price cost ratio. This is where somebody weighs cost versus price. In the world of sales, you've heard of cost is people's time, energy, effort, frustration, right? And so when it comes to this, their cost going up, they're thinking, oh shoot, I could spend just a little bit, but I don't want to spend just a little bit. And so all of a sudden they find this balancing point of where they're comfortable. And you guessed it already, over 80% of consumers is going to fall where?
In the
In the
middle.
middle. Every time. They're going to jump right in that middle because the middle's always safe.
Matt, have you heard the story of the $190 cheeseburger?
No? You want to share it?
Yeah, I walk into an upscale steakhouse and sit down with the menu and open it up. And the first thing I see is the $190 cheeseburger. It's A5 Wagyu chuck with gold leaf and caviar and $190 for a hamburger. See what else they have. A $65 ribeye looks real good. I'm going to get that. I'm not gonna go in and probably look at the $65 ribeye and say, "Oh, that's too expensive." But because they had the $190 cheeseburger, that $65 ribeye is looking real nice.
That's the purpose of that tomahawk steak too, isn't it? All right.
Absolutely.
So we'll give them the bone for an extra $100, right? So that's funny, but I would like to know where that cheeseburger's at because I bet it's freaking amazing.
Somewhere in Vegas, I'm assuming.
So here's what we did, CJ. In our home service company, we said, okay, we've got to have contrast in all of our jobs. We got to be able to give people options. So we started just teaching how to sell options to our staff, just like salespeople do. Hey, if you don't give them options, they don't know it's there. But yet we still got some resistance, and we ended up with this one resistance question that kept coming up, and people would say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You ever heard of that? And so we said, where does that question, why are they saying this? See, there's that question, why again? And so we went ahead and we started assessing all of the possible jobs that we might run into. And we assessed over 120,000 possible jobs to date. So today we've looked at over 120,000 possible jobs that your technicians are going to run into. And we looked at them based on two things. First of all, when one thing goes bad, one part fails, what is the failure curve of all the parts and pieces around it? And so, what's the failure curve of all the other things? So, like, for example, I know this is about HVAC, a lot of you. And so, in an air conditioning unit, if a contactor goes bad in a condenser outside, we've got our contactor, we've got our capacitor, we may have our circuit board, but there's a condenser motor, there's a coil that might be dirty, there's all these other components in the area. There's probably 10 or 15 different components in that area. And so we assessed all of them and we said, wait a minute, if something caused the contactor to go bad, could that situation have affected everything around it? And if you're a trade professional, you know that answer is yes. But yet our industry has made a huge flaw, CJ. Our industry looks at parts as good if they're currently working and bad if they're broke. But it hardly ever assesses actual wear and age. And so we said, you know what? That's just the first part that failed. And so when we look at this, so the new flat rate, we've tested all this stuff and we can talk to you guys about it. Anybody that wants to, we're happy to talk. But we assessed like how many options we should be giving a customer. And we found psychology wise, 5 actually has the best rate of return. But it's not actually only 5 total options, it's 5 options in each area that mentally makes sense for the customer. I'll talk to you about that on a different call. But Um, if we look at delivering options, the world of sales writes customer options based on good, better, best type products. Meaning, hey, I've got this one faucet here and it's a decent one, or I got a little better faucet or a better faucet, or I have this air conditioner or a better air conditioner or a better air conditioner. Are you with me? But the problem is that's the world of sales, and customers' brains don't actually work that way. Customers, when they are spending money in the law of contrast, they don't want it to break again. They don't want to have to go through this experience again. And so with the new flat rate, we started building options, and we started doing this way before we had our app and technology. We did this manually on jobs, and you can do it too. You can do it yourself. That's why we're here. So don't think that this is just a big sales pitch. I can just save you a crap ton of time. But TNFR, we build presentations for over those 120,000 possible jobs your techs are going to run into based on lowering the risk that it could break again and providing the customer relief. You might say, well, how do you lower risk? Well, we lower risk by including in the more premium options the next most likely failures and proactive preventatives in the more premium options. And so, for example, if we're there on a condenser and it's a 5-6 year old condenser, and the contactor failed. Well, I've been to the Daikin manufacturer, CJ, and I've seen contactors on the wall that have been sitting there turning on and on and off for freaking 25 years. So here we're 5 years in. Why did it fail? Well, everything around it probably felt that same. So in the more premium options, it automatically includes the contactor, the capacitor, cleaning the condenser, maybe the new condenser motor, maybe a surge protector, maybe a hard start or a soft start kit, if that's what you like. But we just service and restore everything. And the cool thing is when we do that, it triples the average time between breakdowns in that area again. And so we don't have that call back 2 weeks later. Now, we did something else too. We changed the way that we communicate, and we stopped selling parts. Matter of fact, we stopped talking about parts altogether. And the reason we did that is when you started in the home service trades, if you're a service technician, for the first 6 to 12 months that you were in the trades, every day you were learning what parts and pieces were called and what they did. And the same goes with the tools. Your customers have never actually had that training. So we learned that when we go in and say things like, you need a contactor, it actually makes the customer feel inferior and stupid. And people don't like feeling stupid. And so when they feel stupid today, you're like, well, I'm the professional. I can tell them. They're not going to ask you. They're actually just going to pull out their smartphone. They're going to look it up on Google. They're going to see that they can put it on looking at Amazon, YouTube, buy it, whatever they need to. You see, we learned that using part names and what we call commodities are the number one reason why a customer actually Googles and looks up things that you're talking about, and why they start seeing that you're gouging them and charging them too much. Because today, Amazon controls everything, and whatever parts that you're putting on, they can buy them cheaper than that on Amazon. Doesn't matter what you charge, a lot or a little. And so when it comes to commodities, commodities are any specific part or task that'll solve the customer's problem. It's a solution to their problem that puts you and your company as optional. And this goes back to what we started with today. I'm trying to wrap it up because I know we're on a time crunch. We started with that question, why would a customer call you and not say yes? Right? Well, right here's the answer. When you showed up to the job, you were the solution to their problem. They didn't call your company and say, I need a part. That's less than 1% of consumers. They called and said, I need somebody to help solve a problem. You went out there. They said, please, please help me, CJ, fix this for me. So you went in, you looked at it, but when you come back and you say, hey, I took a look at it, you need a contactor. At that very moment, you are no longer the solution to their problem. A contactor is. And whenever the solution becomes a product or a commodity, the focus becomes price. So we made a change. And we went into started working on what I refer to today as value packaging. And value packaging is a different way to communicate that helps the customer feel that we're the right choice. Now, question here, because sometimes somebody's morals are going to go crazy. You're going to be like, you're lying to a customer. I'm not lying to a customer. A customer can ask me a question, I'll answer it. They can ask me what parts we're using, I'll answer it. I'll tell them. I don't care. But I know that over 90% of consumers will never ask you that question when you do what I'm going to show you because they don't care either. They just want you to solve their problem. And so what I'm talking about here is not a way to get the customer's money. It's a way to allow your customer to allow you to do what they always wanted you to do, which is to actually solve their problem. Does that make sense? So here's what we did. Instead of talking about parts and you need this, we changed the conversation to the systems that we're working in. And the systems are all the parts and pieces connected. If one part failed, it's connected to other things. What does the system do? So like that contactor, for example, it distributes power throughout the unit. And so therefore, we would go in and just say, hey, Mr. Customer, I took a look at your unit outside. I'm a little concerned because we found a fault in the voltage distribution system, not with the voltage distribution system. I didn't change the part names, that it's still a contactor. I just told them where I found the concern. We found a concern in the voltage distribution system. But don't worry, I've got some options. Would you like to go over them now? And the funny thing is this light bulb comes on in the customer's mind and they say, well, yeah, we want you to fix it, or we want a new one, whatever it is. Doesn't matter what we're there for. And so today, we've taken that idea as the new flat rate and we've ultimately built thousands and thousands of presentations. And in our app today, it's designed to do what we know the technician can do. And CJ, that's that they're going to go in, they're going to find that part that's bad. And in less than 15 seconds, they can open up the new flat rate app and just tell it what part is bad. And the new flat rate will generate a presentation with 5 options focused on value package phrasing that the customer will say yes to and price it out and everything instantly. And it's pretty cool, but that's what we do. So hang on, I can't see something there. So with it, yeah,
Apologies. I was just going to say customers don't have to memorize a bunch of stuff. They just prompt the software and the software gives them kind of the script to present.
That's yeah. So the cool thing about the new flat rate is for the guys that want to do even better. We do have some scripts and stuff that will literally turn you into the top 1%, right? But today, like I've got the app right here, they can literally come in here and just in seconds they can say, hey, I'm an HVAC service technician. Well, what do I need? Oh, I need some sort of relay. Why? What do I need? Oh, I need a contactor in the condenser. Boom, there I got it right there. And then in that fast, my software just built them 5 options with their company's prices and everything. And so the design of this, we've tested this. It's used over 30,000 times a week today. The design is that they can literally just walk in and say, hey, CJ, I took a look at your unit. Here's your options to fix it. What should we do? And everything's worded in a way that the customer understands it because they don't care about the parts and pieces. They just want to know that they're going to get their money's worth. And so when they read the top option, it's going to talk about rebuilding the unit. When they read the bottom option, it's going to talk about just getting it up and going and doing a patch. Does that make sense? And it's not that we're ever going to do bad work. It's that if we only change one part, we know something without a doubt. I know that every service technician that will ever listen to this call has witnessed changing one part and 2 weeks later, the part right next to it failing. And so it is a patch if that's all we do. And so we focus on, hey, you're starting to have problems. Do you want to rebuild it all or just a little bit? It's up to you. And we just put all of the control on the customer, just like how Walmart and Home Depot allow the customer to walk down the aisles without a salesman. If they want to pick something off the shelf and buy it, they can. If they don't want to, they can put it back. If they want to ask a question, there's people there that they can ask questions to. And so the same goes with us. They can ask the tech a question if they want to also. Make sense? So I just did
Absolutely.
that. So, um, as we start to come to a close here, I threw these up here because some of you just needed to hear this. That as a trade professional, I'm going to encourage you to always pay attention and do a personal debrief job by job. And every time, whether you get a good job or a bad job, doesn't matter, but debrief and ask yourself the question, did I have any value detractors? Things I was doing that was taking the value that the customer was looking for away from the call. Some of the most common ones are putting the focus on what the customer quote unquote needs, like the part, you need this, instead of the future. And you'll see that on the next one. But also, rushing is one of the biggest ones. If you're worrying about getting to three or four other calls, your results are going to go down. The most successful and profitable service technicians in the industry generally run less than three calls. It's usually less than two in a day, and they maximize every opportunity they go on. And so they're bringing in way more money, but you're like, well, customers will get mad. Nope. We actually see happier customers when they spend more money and we're able to spend more time because the customer feels like they're not going to have to worry about it again. And so just pay attention to that. And then the other thing was, what are my value adders? And value adders are things that you have to do um, purposefully. So, are you doing anything to make the customer feel like you're listening to them? One of my favorite things for that is very old school. A lot of techs are like, oh my gosh, Matt, we're so past paper. It's literally carrying a little notebook in my pocket. And when a customer starts talking, pulling it out of my pocket and say, wow, those are really great questions. Do you mind if I take some notes? Because I don't even care if you're scribbling. If you ever look at it, it makes the customer feel more important when you're doing that, that you're paying attention. um, Asking good fact finding questions, things that like getting the customer to take you to all the locations in the property, asking about history, making sure that they're not on any time crunches, but just paying attention to overall communication. One thing I probably learned the most from is, and you can't always find it online because they pull it down, they want you to pay for it, but Tony Robbins is one of the leading professionals in self-improvement, and he used to have a video on YouTube called Building Rapport with Tony Robbins. And it was about building professional trust by mastering your body language, your tonality, and the words that you said. And it was just really good. And I practiced that for years to just improve a little bit every day consciously. Let me make sure that I'm slowing down so the customer feels important. And for anybody that wants it, you can shoot us a message at the end of this, and I'm happy to share a resource with you that I refer to as the service call life cycle. And the service call life cycle is all of the steps that go into the from the moment I wake up to walk out to my service truck in the morning till the end of my first job. And we've got an editable one available that's got examples in it, but that you can build your process into to say, hey, what are all the steps, the things I'm doing? And then you can question them based on, are these value adders or are they detractors? And that's really a great resource. So you can drop that in the chat that you would like that, or when you scan the more info, just shoot us an email or text message and say, I want to get that service call life cycle, and we'll be happy to share that with you. I've got a download on my website for it as well. But that's what that is. So as we, I guess, go into the end, these were just kind of feelers if we needed them, CJ. But as you do your debriefs, I would encourage all of you. You know, when I coach and train with salespeople and service technicians, the top 10% in the industry, the ones that you see their numbers and you're like, how in the world are they doing that? They all have one thing in common. They track their own numbers, and I know like Breezy probably helps do a lot of that too, make sure that you can get all those numbers and everything there. But you've got to take control of the results. And you can't just wait for your service manager to give them to you later. If you want to become the best in your position, make the most, provide more for your family, get those better closing rates, it starts with keeping track of everything that you do and adjusting your daily habits. It doesn't mean you got to work longer. You know what? And some companies wince when I say this. You can work a lot less hours and even for a lot less customers and make a lot more money and have happier customers and a much better home life a lot of times. But you do have to become a master in that time. So at the end of the day, give them simple options, build value, and just let the customer choose. So I kind of wanted to close with this, and then I'll turn it over to you, CJ. What are the steps to being a closer if you're going to take something away from this call? Well, step number one is just listen to the customer from the start. I've learned over the years that if you pay attention within the first 5 minutes of the call, almost every customer you ever meet will tell you subtly everything that you need to know in order to get the job. Everything that you need to know. They'll tell you exactly what they're willing to buy today. They'll tell you exactly what their status and their financial abilities are. But you got to listen and then stop worrying about what you're going to say. Just listen to understand. Show curiosity. Show that they're important, that they matter, that you care. I was taught that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so show them that. Slow down, take a breath in between every line that you're trying to talk to them about. Because the goal isn't to get it out so you can get to the next job. The goal is for them to understand what you said. If they understand what you said, they'll understand the value. You'll have less questions and more people taking your premium options. Watch what you say. This one really comes down to, don't make shit up. Like just don't. At the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with being a professional and telling a customer, that's a really good question. I would hate to give you wrong information right now. If you don't mind, let me do a little research and I'll get back to you. But if you make stuff up on the fly and they catch you in the day of technology, that job's gone and that customer's gone for your company forever. And probably 10 others with it. Deliver a valuable wow experience. Ask yourself the question on every single job: what did I do for wow factor? And preferably a visual upgrade, like those cleanings that I showed on there, that you can show a customer, not a before and after of a part, but a before and after of an area that they're like, wow, that looks so much better. I don't even know what I'm looking at, but it looks so much better. That's what you want. And then let them buy with contrast and relief focused options. So deliver options. Either use the new flat rate, will help you get set up, or write your own, but your top option should be relief focused, not just a better product, but a better area service that you know will reduce likelihood of future breakdowns. And they'll usually buy it. So that's my 2 cents, CJ. How'd I do?
Yeah, incredible content. I wrote down one thing specifically throughout this whole conversation, and that was your slide about differentiating sales from differentiating how the new flat rate presents options. It's good, better, best about the product versus lowering risk and providing relief. Could you talk a little bit more about what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, and first of all, yeah, and if we got it just a second, let me
Yeah.
explain this one thing. So there's this thing, and I draw it out in my classes. We've got these in-depth communication classes. So if anybody is even not using the new flat rate and ever wants to come to one of those classes, let me know. But we go over what's called the failure curve, and I learned it from some engineers in manufacturing. So when they build products, every single product, every single part is on this curvature. And the curvature is, to make it simple to understand, it's a projection of the life expectancy. Okay.
Mm.
And so let's just say that we have a part that's projected for a 10-year, like a 10-year warranty, right? Like this has a 10-year warranty on this part. Well, the failure curve looks at the likelihood of failure as the years go by. So like if I have a part that was designed to last 10 years, at year 1, you can say, oh, well, it's consumed 10% of its life. That's not wrong. But the likelihood of failure at year 1 is like 5%. right? Because new things don't break as much as older things, right? But then we get to year 3, it might be at 15%. We get to year 5, and that becomes the downswing of the life. And maybe we're only at like 35% likelihood of failure, even halfway through it. But then the failure curve changes, and really rapidly, it goes from 35%, 45%, 55%, 65%, 75%. And I might be at what should be 75% and be at like a 95% likelihood of failure. And when I saw this, I was like, well, why do they give a 10-year warranty if something's like 95% likely to fail at 7? And
Right.
the reason is because people move. And so people move so often and they don't remember they have warranties. The manufacturers track the likelihood that they'll have to serve the warranty, and it's hardly anything right there. Like it's this very small percentage that they actually ever get caught at with those longer warranties. And so, but once I started understanding this, then that what comes back to your question is the realization of the risk and the fact that if I'm working under a sink, like I'm a plumber too, and if I'm under a sink and I have one, slip joint connector that's leaking, the likelihood of all the other connectors in that area starting to leak after I fix that one is it's like 95%. Like it's this extreme likelihood if I only fix that one will start leaking. And plumbers would see this, and so will an HVAC guy, you know. But so it's always, I just want you to step back. And so if you're there and this is the part that broke, just step back and just look right there and say, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, this is only 2 years old. Well, shoot, if it's only 2 years old, CJ, should that first part have failed? And the answer is no. The likelihood of failure for that first part is that it shouldn't have failed. And if that one failed early, how can I trust everything else around it? I mean, that makes sense as we're talking about it here, but that's not what I was taught as a tech.
Sure.
As a tech, I was like, oh, those are only 2 years old. They're fine. And then we have a call back 2 weeks later. And so I started realizing that if you're going to provide relief and lower risk, you had to be willing to do what others weren't. You had to be willing to say, wait a minute, I'm about to put my name on this. And so all the techs that are listening, if you were going to go work on a job and you knew that when you were done, I was going to go down to the trophy hut and have them cast this bronze statue of your face that says, CJ did this job. And then I was going to put it next to that job you did and march all the other trade professionals past it to pick apart the work that you did. What type of work would you want to do?
Gold standard. I need my cast in gold
All the way, right?
because that's the service I provide.
But you see, that's what everybody tells me. They're all like, oh, I want to do the best. But yet then they want to fight me about replacing a part that's still working.
Right.
And so you've got to stop worrying about what's good and bad and start focusing on what is my gold standard. If I want to walk away knowing my name's going on it and telling the customer the likelihood of failure has been reset, then I would have wanted to touch every single part in the area. Does that answer your
100%.
question?
Yeah, I think it does. You mentioned, value detractors earlier. So, what are some of the most common ones you see, and how can we kind of eliminate those very quickly?
Yeah. So biggest value detractors that I've seen. First of all, it's giving too much information specifically in the context of making assumptions. Would probably be where it's at. So home service providers, we tend to utilize our experiences, especially as you get better in your career. And so when you walk in and you see something at a glance, you usually know like that fast within like a 99% likelihood of what's going on, right? And so one of the biggest value detractors though is voicing that with the customer before you've actually taken the time to break away, go get some sort of tool and testing equipment and verify it because it makes you look like a salesman. and people hate to be sold. And so we've got a rule that we try to follow in our process that says leave all your tools in the truck when you get to the job, and you're not allowed to talk to the customer about what's wrong until after you're done diagnosing and when you're ready to present. And then, but we're not allowed to start diagnosing without our tools. And so even if no tools are needed. And so when that rule's in place, then when the home service provider goes into the job and he doesn't have his tools with him, well, then he's forced to create a dialogue with the customer to get them to show him around and do these things. And what's happening is that's adding to time. It doesn't take a lot, 10, 15 minutes maybe, but it's adding to the time that's making the customer feel more important instead of just, oh, yeah, I've seen this before. Yep. Yeah, your igniter's probably bad. Yep. Okay. Yeah, we can fix that. No problem. Because every time you do that, you say, no problem. It's easy. Probably just this. The perception of price and value goes down. And so the customer's thinking, great. So $50 and we're good to go. And then when they see your price of two, three, four, 500, 1,000, whatever, you're
Right.
always going to be too much.
Ryan in the chat asks, how do you change a working part when you are changing a failed part under warranty?
Oh, well, that's a great question. We actually do go over that in detail in our training class, the classes that we teach. So I'd love to have you there sometime, Ryan. But I'll give you the simple version of it, but try not to take it out of context because this is a hour-long conversation on that question. But I'll give you the simple. Step number one is understanding how warranties work and that manufacturer warranties are not active. Now, I know you think, oh, it's under warranty. No, no, no. Manufacturer warranties in that paperwork that comes with the product, they activate on failure. So, because that one part failed inside the 10 years, the manufacturer will replace the part. But all the parts that haven't failed yet, the warranty isn't active on. And so when we make the offer to the customer. What we do is we issue them a credit for the amount of work that was covered under warranty. So maybe that one part might have normally been $400, and we issue a credit that can be used towards all of our other options. And the more premium options, yes, we're replacing parts that, yes, if they fail in the warranty period, maybe the customer wouldn't have to buy. But that's a big if. And when parts fail, the customer still has to take a day off work to get them fixed. And so we don't tell them they have to. We just give them the option. Hey, my top option resets the failure curve, allows us to rebuild the area so you don't have to worry about it. It's $1,800, but we have these other options. Great news. You know what? We talked to the manufacturer and my company. We went ahead and issued a $450 repair credit you can use towards any one of these options. What should we do? And it covers, generally that credit would cover whatever was under warranty. And if they want to move up, they do. And what their reason is I just don't want it to happen again, right? Because in warranty or not, that doesn't lower the customer's cost. But as a trade professional, just to make sure that you got enough with my answer, I cannot turn in all those other parts under warranty because the manufacturer will reject them and then red flag my account because they're not quote unquote failed. But that doesn't mean that their failure curve isn't maxed out. And so that's what you got to realize is there's a difference between proactive maintenance and reset and something that's already 100% gone. But just like your car, if your brakes could fail in the near future, and if they failed completely, they were under warranty, but they're getting low and you're fixing to go on a trip, you have two types of customers. Ones that are going to want to pay full price today to get it done, even if they could wait and get it cheaper later, and ones that want to wait and take the risk. And so the difference between sales and letting the customer buy is I don't care if the customer wants to take the risk. I do care if I didn't tell them about it.
Right.
And so they can buy it or they can wait. It's up to them. And most buy it, by the way, just for the record.
For sure. And that's a good point. And just what you said before about, you going into detail and in depth in your training classes on this, like you do have to kind of master the communication around this and understand how to, efficiently communicate that concept to the homeowner in the home. So, yeah, if anybody wants to take advantage of that, I would highly recommend. I want to just thank you for pouring so much wisdom into our community today. And a huge thank you to your entire team over at the new flat rate, just for the value you continue to bring onto the show, to our customers, like I kind of said in the beginning of the show, and to the industry as a whole. Like, this partnership between us, like, it really does elevate the trades. And I'm so happy to have you guys on the show, and hope to see you back again.
Well, hey, thank you for having me, CJ. And parting words, I guess, would be this is, um, Wayne Gretzky is known for that statement: "You miss 100% of the shots you never take." And so, as a trade professional, the parting word would be, if you don't give them the option, then you're stealing their choice. And so you not only run the risk of not getting the option selected, but you also run the risk of having a customer feel like you withheld something from them. And so many of you have had that happen in the past, where you had a callback and you had to go back to a job, and the customer said, "Why didn't you tell me last time?" And in your mind, well, it was working. I didn't know, right? But so what we're doing is just, we're not stealing their choice anymore. Let them choose. And the thing is, it's okay if they choose the minimum and take the risk, as long as they knew that's what they were doing.
Right.
And that's what we do. And most people won't. So hopefully that works.
Incredible point. And thanks again, Matt. Thank you to everybody who showed up today. Investing in your skills and your leadership and your team. That's what separates the good company from the great ones. And I just appreciate your time and your engagement. Before we wrap up today, I want to invite you to our next free HVAC Insider Series masterclass with Rosalind Fitzgibbons. She's the driving force behind the hiring and the training programs at Eco Plumbers, $90 million per year, just plumbing powerhouse from Ohio that really shattered so many of the industry ceilings. And she'll be teaching the recruiting funnel, exactly what you need to do to scale with the confidence. So on the next screen, click the QR code, or I'll drop the link in the chat as well. You don't want to miss this one. Guys, thanks for spending your time here today. Keep learning, keep leading, keep pushing your businesses forward, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again, Matt.
Thanks.
Peace.